Urologist explains how to masturbate safely after 60. Turning 60 doesn't mark the end of your sex life. It can mark the beginning of one of the best stages if you know what to do. What you choose to do or not do from today onward can be the line that separates a vibrant maturity or an irreversible decline. I've seen dozens of older men sit across from me in my office, their eyes blank, uncomfortable, almost silent. And when we finally touch on the subject of their intimacy, of masturbation, a heavy silence falls. Then comes that confession I hear time and time again. Doctor, I hardly feel anything anymore. Or I can only finish in a very specific way. Or worse, I feel like my body has forgotten how to enjoy it. What most don't know is that the automatic, quick, mechanical, and disconnected way they've been masturbating for years has reprogrammed their bodies toward dysfunction. It's a silent but profound damage. Today, I'm going to reveal the 3 most common mistakes men over 60 make that are destroying their sexual, mental, and even physical health, without them even realizing it. And yes, I'm also going to give you clear, practical, step-by-step solutions to recover what you thought was lost. Before we continue, if you haven't already, I invite you to subscribe and turn on notifications. Here you'll find real, science-based information about men's health. And I want to know if this resonates with you. If what you're hearing connects with you, write a 1 in the comments. If not, write a 0. Your comments are what guide me to create the content you truly need. Now let's get down to business. Mistake number 1, masturbating on autopilot without being present. I want to tell you about Mr. Hector, a 67-year-old man who came to my office convinced that his problem was his age. Doctor, I'm too old for this, he told me, almost resigned. But upon closer examination, we discovered something quite different. Hector masturbated almost every day, but always the same way. Quickly, tensely, seeing the same intense stimuli. Same hand, same rhythm, same goal, to finish as quickly as possible. Do you know what happens when you repeat this for years? Your brain becomes conditioned to feel pleasure only under that specific pattern, and your sensitivity diminishes. Your body craves more and more stimulation, more pressure, more intensity to achieve what you once accomplished with ease. And there comes a point where you no longer respond with a real partner. Intimacy becomes complicated because it's too different, too slow, too human. This isn't just a habit, it's neurological conditioning that overtrains your system in the wrong direction, and it can lead to pornography-induced erectile dysfunction, delayed ejaculation, or, in severe cases, anorgasmia, the inability to experience pleasure. But the most painful aspect isn't the physical, it's what happens inside you. When your body stops responding, you don't just lose sex, you lose confidence. You start avoiding contact, you isolate yourself, you disconnect emotionally. And this isolation can open the door to dark emotional states, deep sadness, depression, even the first signs of cognitive decline. I'm not telling you this to blame you, but to wake you up. The good news is that your body can relearn, your nervous system can reset, but it requires attention, patience, and a new approach to self-pleasure. Slower, more mindful, more connected to your body and your emotions. Masturbation isn't the enemy. The problem is doing it mindlessly. It's like starting a car, flooring the accelerator, and not touching the steering wheel. Sooner or later, you're headed straight for a crash. And when the damage happens, repairing it takes longer than you imagined. Mistake number 2, completely abandoning ejaculation and sexual contact. There's something just as harmful as masturbating incorrectly, and that's stopping it altogether. Many men, after becoming widowers, after a divorce, or simply because they believe they are too old for that, renounce their sexuality. That stage is over, they tell themselves. I remember Don Roberto, 68 years old. He came in because he was getting up 5 or 6 times every night to urinate. He felt pressure, heaviness, and a constant pain in his lower abdomen. He thought it was just old age. What he didn't expect was my question. When was the last time you ejaculated? He looked at me surprised, almost offended. Years, doctor. Since my wife died, I haven't had sex, and I thought that at my age I should give it up. That's the myth that's making us sick. That after 60, 65, or 70, you should give up your sex life. But here's the reality. Even if you don't have sex, your prostate continues to produce fluid. And if that fluid isn't released, it accumulates, creating stagnation inside the body. This accumulation is not harmless. It's like letting a pipe build up pressure until it bursts. That constant retention of prostatic fluid causes ingestion, inflammation, pain, and, over time, serious health problems. The prostate wasn't designed to store fluid forever. When there's no release, this tissue swells, becomes irritated, congested, and then the symptoms begin that many mistake for getting old. An urgent need to urinate, a weak stream, dribbling after urination, burning, and even discomfort during ejaculation. Most men attribute this to old age, when in reality, it's a system that's saturated, blocked, and under pressure. And here's the really important part. Chronic prostate inflammation has been associated with an increased risk of prostate cancer. I'm not saying that abstinence causes cancer, but I can assure you of this. Frequent ejaculation helps reduce the inflammatory environment that makes the prostate more vulnerable. To show you that this isn't just opinion, but evidence, I'll share a compelling fact. A Harvard study followed nearly 20,000 men for years and found that those who ejaculated at least 21 times a month had a significantly lower risk of developing prostate cancer. This isn't a myth. It's science. Returning to Roberto, when he understood what was really happening inside his body, something changed. He rediscovered self-pleasure, not out of guilt or loneliness, but as an act of self-care. And, as the weeks went by, he began to notice changes. Less pressure on his bladder, fewer nighttime awakenings, deeper sleep, and above all, a different sparkle in his eyes. He had reclaimed a part of himself he had put on hold, believing it was no longer his to experience. Neglecting this area doesn't just rob you of sleep or condemn you to endless discomfort. It can lead to unnecessary treatments, lifelong medications, surgeries, and, yes, an increased risk of cancer. All because of the false belief that a man your age shouldn't pay attention to this aspect of his health. You don't ignore your heart. You don't ignore your blood pressure. You don't ignore your prostate. Mistake number 3, shame, isolation, and disconnection from your own body. There's a kind of silence that weighs heavily on many older men. I see it constantly in my practice. It's not expressed with words, but with gestures. The averted gaze when I ask about sexual habits, the shrugs when the topic of masturbation comes up, the awkward laughter, the abrupt change of subject, or that, "Doctor, that's not for me anymore. That was when I was young." But I hear what's behind it. They didn't stop because they didn't want to anymore. They stopped because at some point they learned that it was shameful to continue. And I want to be completely honest with you. This silent shame is one of the most destructive forces to your male health today. Many of you grew up in a time when self-pleasure was labeled dirty, sinful, immoral, or shameful. You were punished or ridiculed for it. And those beliefs didn't just disappear over time. They remained buried deep inside you, ingrained in your nervous system, silently shaping your relationship with desire, your body, and pleasure. Over the years, that shame turns into a gradual withdrawal. You disconnect from physical contact, even when you crave it. You begin to see desire as inappropriate. You stop reaching out to yourself, not for lack of wanting to, but because you were conditioned to believe you shouldn't. And that disconnection, if it persists, ceases to be merely emotional and becomes biological. Because here's what almost no one has explained to you. Regular sexual contact, including healthy masturbation, has direct, measurable, and profoundly positive effects on your health. It regulates cortisol, stimulates dopamine, and promotes the production of oxytocin, the hormone of connection and calm. It improves sleep, stabilizes mood, and enhances memory and cognitive function. But shame sabotages all of this. Shame tenses the body, triggers stress, increases negative hormones, and creates guilt. And chronic stress, as we know, is associated with depression, anxiety, heart disease, weakened immunity, and even cognitive decline and dementia. Let me tell you about Don Luis, a 72-year-old man, recently divorced, deeply sad and disconnected. He wasn't taking medication. He didn't have any serious diagnoses, but he was numb, alone. He confessed to me that he hadn't had sexual contact with anyone for over a decade, not even with himself. "I feel too old for that," he said. But I heard something deeper: pain at having stopped feeling alive. We worked step by step, without pills, without drastic changes, just simple exercises to reconnect with his own body, without pressure, without goals, without rushing. And after a few weeks, something awakened. She walked with more energy, her sleep improved, she laughed again. Her blood pressure dropped. It wasn't that she got better. She recovered. He disconnected. That's the price of shame, gentlemen. It doesn't arrive all at once. It steals your vitality slowly, millimeter by millimeter. It convinces you that you're too old to feel, to enjoy, to experience pleasure. But listen to this, because I want you to take it with you. You're never too old to touch yourself with respect, with affection, with presence. You're never too old to feel like a whole man. And this is where everything becomes even more delicate. When loneliness mixes with shame, when a man stops touching himself, being touched, connecting with another human being or with himself, the body doesn't just shut down from pleasure, it shuts down from life. It's as if the body interprets, "I'm no longer needed." And little by little, it starts to lower the volume of everything that makes you feel alive: passion, energy, purpose, motivation. And there's one element that very few men associate with this: testosterone. Yes, it's true, testosterone decreases with age, but what almost no one tells you is that it drops even faster when you disconnect from your sexuality. When you stop engaging with your body, with your desire, with your intimate energy, your hormonal system receives the wrong message. We don't need to keep producing. And when that hormonal balance is disrupted, it doesn't just affect sexual desire. It alters how you think, how you feel, how you navigate life. I remember the case of Don Javier, 73 years old, a former firefighter. A man who had always been a man of strength, courage, and resolve. When he arrived at my office, I didn't recognize the man I'd been told about. He was hunched over, exhausted, with a subdued voice. "I'm just slowing down, doctor," he told me. But when I looked at his test results, his testosterone was almost at clinically deficient levels. And when I asked him about his sex life, he simply lowered his gaze and shook his head. "I'm no longer interested," he murmured. But that phrase, uttered with resignation, was the real alarm bell. Because the problem wasn't his age, it was that he had stopped seeing himself as a man with the right to feel, to desire, to be alive. We worked together to reconnect him, not with someone else, but with himself. Without pressure, without performance goals, without rushing, simple exercises, presence, breath, mindful touch. And as the months passed, his body responded. His hormone levels improved, his posture straightened, his voice regained its strength. He started weight training again. And there was something else. His eyes had a spark again. The body listens to everything you do, and also what you don't do. When you ignore your sexuality, your testosterone shuts down. But when you remind your brain, "I'm still here, I'm still feeling, I'm still alive," it reactivates internal systems that were dormant. So, where do you begin if you feel like you've been fading away? I want to share with you what I call the Reconnection Protocol, a practice of just 10 minutes a day that can transform not only your sex life, but your entire life force. It's a training for your nervous system, your self-esteem, and your biology. Here's how to do it. Step 1. Find a private space where you feel comfortable and safe. Your bedroom in the morning or before bed works perfectly. Step 2. Place one hand on your chest and take 5 deep breaths. Inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth. Relax your jaw, Release your shoulders. Let go of the day's weight. Step 3. Touch yourself with intention, but without rushing. Without a goal. You're not looking to finish. You're exploring your own body as if rediscovering it. Approach it with curiosity, not urgency. Step 4. If thoughts of guilt, shame, or judgment arise, don't fight them. Observe them and let them go. They aren't yours. They're remnants of the past that no longer serve you. Step 5. If you ejaculate, wonderful. If not, that's perfectly fine too. Because the goal isn't orgasm, but reconnection. Do this for 30 consecutive days, and you'll notice changes not only in your sexual function, but also in your sleep, mood, confidence, and inner energy. Many men describe this practice as coming home. Now, I want to speak to you very clearly about a sensitive topic: pornography. I know that for many older men, it has become one of the few stimuli that still arouses them. But modern pornography, fast-paced, exaggerated, hyperstimulating, desensitizes the brain. Every time you watch it, your brain releases dopamine, the neurotransmitter of pleasure. But over time, the brain becomes less receptive and needs more intensity to feel the same. It's not a moral issue, it's neurochemistry. The brain adapts to what it sees repeatedly. And if you train it with unrealistic, artificial, extreme stimuli, your body begins to need those levels to activate. The consequence? Less firm erections, more difficult orgasms, and even cases where the man can only function with pornography, but not with a real partner. Not even in an intimate time with yourself without screens. But listen carefully to this, because it may be the most important thing I tell you today. It's not irreversible. You're not damaged, you're conditioned. And any condition can be retrained. Even after 60, your brain is capable of healing, of resetting, of feeling real pleasure again. Some men choose to start with 30 days without pornography to cleanse their nervous system and restore their sensitivity. Other men decide to extend that period beyond 30 days, progressing little by little, rebuilding their sensitivity to real pleasure without screens and without rushing. No matter how slow the process is, what's important is that you move in the right direction, rebuilding the relationship between your nervous system and pleasure on your own terms, without guilt, without shame, and without unrealistic expectations that make you feel inadequate. And now I want to talk to you about something essential that many men normalize without understanding the profound impact it has on their health: erectile function. There's a silent lie that takes hold after a certain age. If I'm not having sex, then it doesn't matter whether I get erections or not. But let me state something with absolute clarity that most doctors don't emphasize enough. Erectile function isn't just about sex. It's about blood flow, nerve health, hormonal balance, cardiovascular integrity, and longevity. The penis is like any other muscular and vascular structure in your body, and if you don't use it, the tissues become less elastic. The blood vessels narrow, oxygen flow is reduced, and the neural connections weaken. Then, even if you want to use it later, your body won't respond the way it used to. Having regular erections, whether through conscious self-stimulation, spontaneous arousal, or even simple sensory response, keeps blood flow active, oxygenates the tissues, preserves sensitivity, and keeps the neural pathways responsible for activating your sexual response alive. It's not about chasing pleasure for its own sake, but about preserving an essential part of your physical and emotional health and your identity as a man. And if you've made it this far, I want you to hear this not just with your mind, but with your heart. You are not broken, you are not late, and you are not alone. Your body hasn't abandoned you. Even now, your systems want to respond to touch, tenderness, and connection. Your brain still wants to feel, your heart still longs to open, and your skin perfectly remembers what it feels like to be alive. It just needs permission to awaken. This journey back doesn't begin with a partner. It doesn't depend on having someone else. It begins with you, with the decision to stop shrinking your presence, to stop apologizing for wanting well-being and pleasure in your own body, to stop believing the lie that age makes you invisible. You are not invisible. You are here, and what you do with this stage is what truly matters. If this message resonated with you, write yes in the comments, and if you have any questions, leave them below, and I'll answer them in the next video. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this message with someone who needs it. I'm Dr. Daniela Ramirez, and I want you to remember that your sex life isn't over. It just needs reconnection, respect, and the courage to reclaim what was always yours. See you in the next video, gentlemen. Take care and love yourselves.